Guyana. It's a beautiful nation nestled in northeastern South America, and because of its geography, Guyana enjoys a gorgeous tropical environment year-round. Known for many things: cricket, calypso, amazing cuisine, and the stunning Kaieteur Falls. Guyana, like so many other previously colonized nations, has had its share of political corruption, barbaric crimes, and obstruction of justice. Over the years, the nation has done its best to maintain a fair and peaceful land, and though that dream is mostly now realized, the suspicion from many inhabitants and the general distrust in the government is still very much present. In spite of this, you will still find numerous Guyanese immigrants from all around the world still fiercely in love with their homeland, still working towards returning to Guyana one day. People like Vivekanand, Narpatty, the elderly man who achieved that dream only to be tortured and killed for it by his own brother. Throughout the 70s into the 80s, there was a wave of Guyanese inhabitants migrating to foreign nations, the United States, England, and Canada being amongst the top picks. In his younger days, Vivekanand, or Vika as he was known to his family and friends, was amongst this group, migrating to Canada in 1971. He married in 1975 and started a family and lived in Canada for decades, but his dream of returning to Guyana one day was seemingly one he could never shake. The goal was to become an entrepreneur and the first individual in Guyana to own a beach resort, then hopefully to eventually live there once again, but this time in a better financial position than the one he would have presumably been raised in. This was a fine dream, and he did achieve it. In year 2000, he founded and built the Sunsplash Holiday Beach Resort in Berbice Quarantine, although life as an international entrepreneur would prove to be a little more trickier than he may at first realized. There were periods when the resort fell into disrepair and business in general wasn't going well, but in spite of this, Vivekanand kept his hope and held on to his dream of creating his and his family's success in Guyana. He frequently visited his homeland, and whenever he did, he would reopen the Sunsplash for business. He was known for his generosity and for his love of his family and native land. While living in Canada, he shipped 50 barrels of necessary items to his extended family in need living in Guyana. He was described as a hard-working man who labored for everything he achieved. So on one December morning in 2019, when Vivekanand's body was discovered mutilated and battered alongside his employee, everybody who knew him was in disbelief. But as the investigation unfolded, it would reveal a story of betrayal and jealousy, a modern-day version of Cain and Abel, but far more grotesque and brutal by nature. In December of 2019, Vivekanand had been visiting his resort in Quarantine. He had been there since September. While in Guyana, he resided at his resort along with his employee, Parshad, who was hired as a caretaker and security guard for the resort. The Sunsplash had suffered an increase in break-ins. At one point, it was the target of an explosion that obliterated the back of the resort along with Vivekanand's car. This trip, however, was seemingly normal. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Vivekanand, when traveling, was always sure to regularly contact his daughters back in Canada. But then a day passed with no phone call, and then another, and then another. Ebony, Vivekanand's daughter, knew this was out of her father's character, so she asked a family friend in Guyana to check on him. Knowing Vivekanand would be at his resort, this family friend headed there, but once he arrived on the property, shortly after 11 a.m. on December 27th, 2019, something stopped even him from entering the building. An unmistakable smell of decomposition. Emergency services would be called, where they would discover upstairs in the dining area of the Sunsplash Resort the bodies of 71-year-old Vivekanand and 59-year-old Parshad. The pair had obviously been the victims of something barbaric, a torture and death that took time to complete. Both were found bound, gagged, and mutilated, tied to a post with their hands behind their backs. Harry was missing his left foot, and Vivekanand, 2 toes. They were brutally beaten and tortured. The autopsy report concluded they died of shock, a result of being dismembered while still alive. Given the state of decomposition, it appeared the two men had been dead for around 4 days prior to their discovery. The last time Vivekanand was seen alive was on the evening of December 19th, when he left his sister's house after having dinner with her. The investigation immediately began, with numerous suspects being detained and questioned in connection to the crime. Of these multiple statements, a common narrative began to form, consistently implicating 3 men: 51-year-old Alvin Durant, a 16-year-old unnamed juvenile male, and Rishi Deo Narpatty, none other than the brother of Vivekanand, Narpatty. Now this is where the story begins to unfold. Alvin Durant was a farmer living in the number 65 village in quarantine. Life as a Guyanese farmer isn't necessarily the most lucrative field, which could explain Alvin's motives for the role he played in the crime. Alvin pled guilty to first-degree murder and torture of Vivekanand Narpatty and Harry Parshad. He was sentenced to life with no possibility of parole. Before he left to serve the remainder of his life behind bars, he testified, and his testimony would shatter what was left of the Narpatty family. According to Alvin, he, along with an unnamed juvenile, only went through with this heinous crime because they were paid $660 upfront by Rishi Deo Narpatty. Harry Parshad wasn't necessarily even supposed to be there. Alvin, along with his unnamed accomplice, were there for Vivekanand. For years, Rishi had a real problem with his brother. Vivekanand was entitled to 1/3 of a family rice mill property, and this inheritance had been a cause for the tumultuous relationship for years between the two. Despite the failure of the Sunsplash Beach Resort, in Rishi's eyes, Vivekanand was certainly more successful, and this, along with greed, contributed to Rishi's homicidal master plan. Ebony, daughter of Vivekanand, indicated that her father had complained to police in the past with allegations that Rishi had attacked him with a knife and a pickaxe. According to Ebony, nothing was done with any of those reports. So when Vivekanand and Harry were ambushed at the Sunsplash Resort, captured, tortured, mutilated, and killed, it was a hit set in motion by Vivekanand's own brother, Rishi. So, if Rishi Deo Narpatty is the suspected mastermind of this gruesome double homicide, what is his sentence? Well, Rishi Deo Narpatty has never been formally charged. At the moment, he's still only suspected of being somewhere within the United States. Judge Justice Kasoon, who presided over this case, stated in reference to Rishi, "The police are in possession of sufficient information to warrant and to justify that person being brought back to this jurisdiction with the assistance of the authorities in the United States to stand trial of the offense which it is alleged he set in train." But as of the time of this video, Rishi has yet to be brought to justice or even to testify and give his version of events. This seemingly unexplainable delay in the justice system is what inspires such suspicion from the Narpattys back in Canada. Ebony Narpatty has maintained that the investigation into her father's homicide has been crooked from the start. Her family was prohibited to attend the court proceedings by the prosecution for reasons that were either never given or made any reasonable sense. Every bone in my dad's body was broken 2 or 3 times, and the security guard's head was bashed in until his brains was liquidation. His foot was severed completely and never found, Ebony told the Toronto Sun. "I am very educated. I have a business master's degree and a 3-time police training in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and a postgraduate in law. How come I have never had access to my late father's murder case file? I feel like a major piece is missing from my life, and I don't know how to recover from it. Regardless of whatever sentence occurs today, I must repeat, this is a very huge loss towards Guyana. and it should be ashamed of what took place here today, Ebony told the courts in her victim impact statement, a statement she was forced to make from abroad in Canada. However, Ebony's statement wasn't received well by Judge Kissoon. He later said, "I am disappointed that this is going to be used to attack this nation, its leaders, offices of every department and institution with a brush that they are unworthy and undeserving of. And what is being used as justification for uttering these statements are a series of qualifications that the speaker deems entitles her to form these opinions, to arrive at these conclusions, and to impose them upon these proceedings." It's understandable why this was a case that brought out the emotions of nearly everyone involved. The methodical nature of it, the hire for murder by a jealous brother, the unnecessary brutality and torture, and a family left behind, still searching for answers. One question may always remain: when will Rishi Dale Narpatty face justice for allegedly masterminding the torture, mutilation, and murder of Vivekanand Narpatty and Harry Parshad? My deepest condolences to the Narpatty and Parshad families.